Hello, and welcome to Designing for Flexibility, how personalized learning design can improve outcomes. Today, I want to take a few minutes to talk about how learning programs can incorporate a variety of personalization methods in order to maximize overall results. To begin, let's start by thinking about an individual's learning journey. Often thought of as a simple 2D movement from A to B that's very similar for most learners, an actual learning journey is much more complex, representing a complete set of experiences that lead to one's comprehensive collection of knowledge and skills. It's really not unlike a long, adventurous hike, seemingly never-ending and filled with various types of terrain. And it's this concept of learning topography that I really want to focus on. Topography, in the conventional sense of the word, is simply the study of land surface. It includes both natural and artificial features. For example, topographic maps often tie to various administrative boundaries, landmarks, waterways, and buildings, just to name a few. Viewed from a learning design perspective, topography can really be any number of features encountered on one's learning journey. An intrinsic interest in bugs and biology from a young age, an unnecessarily tough teacher in high school who demanded your best, a well-designed college assignment that caused you to think differently, or even a new piece of technology that allowed you to explore the previously unexplorable. Each of these examples could be viewed as plot points or landmarks on an individual's lifelong learning journey. As opposed to a hike, you might take up a mountain where you may know the distance, the altitude, and the elevation gain before starting your trek. The plot points of your learning journey are created over time, as you go. Some of these markers are natural and innate, like an inherent mind for numbers and math. Others are just happenstance, like what teacher you get for a particular class. And still others are specifically designed learning experiences to optimize the acquisition of knowledge and the building of skills. It's this final type of plot point that is our focus today, specifically how designing your learning experiences to include personalization techniques can lead to a more flexible and successful program. We know flexibility in learning is important for all ages, but likely of increasing importance for adult learners, and we'll talk more about why in a bit. Flexible learning is simply a method where learners are given freedom in how, what, when, and where they learn. Simplistic in description, yet considerably more difficult in practice. It is designing for personalization that can often lead to the flexibility many learners crave, allowing them to achieve the goal while following their own path. Before we go any further, let's take a closer look at some different types of personalized and non-personalized design techniques that can shape and impact learning topography. First up is directive learning. Now, directive learning is likely what comes to mind when you think back to your elementary and high school days. It's a top-down approach to learning, where a single entity, say a tenured, no-nonsense English teacher who loves Shakespeare, decides the structure of learning. That is, how things will be learned, in what order they will be learned, and, in general, what things are worthy to be learned in the first place. So, Romeo and Juliet it is. And this entire framework is largely applied to the entire classroom with no real consideration for individual learner needs, backgrounds, or preferences. In many ways, directive learning can be seen as an industrial age practice where one person or entity has authority and control, and learners are left to conform to the program provided with little to no input. Now, I'm not here to diminish directive learning. It does have its place, but I present it first as to juxtapose with the more flexible and personalized learning strategies that we'll talk about next. Before we continue, it's important to characterize personalization, as it has come to mean different things to different people, and there are varying models of personalization, at least in my view. Fundamentally, personalization is a group of practices that ensure each learner's instructional needs are met. In other words, instructional practices that include differentiation or individualization of content, difficulty, and mode of instruction, among other things. Personalization really comes down to meeting individual learners where they are, or meeting a group of learners with similar experiences and levels of knowledge collectively where they are. What are their current abilities? What are their needs? What are their interests and goals? It is the acknowledgement and support of a framework that says both of these things can be true. One, that the end goal is that all learners in a course or program reach mastery of the given subject. And two, that it's okay for learners to progress to mastery at different rates and in different ways. In this view, one-size-fits-all learning is more likely one-size-fits-none. Going back to our introduction and topography example, learning experiences are rarely linear in nature, that is, following a path directly from A to B. Rather, they're multidirectional, with options of how to get from A to B, accounting for the learner's fitness level, that is, their current knowledge and experience, the gear they have in their pack, or their preferred and accessible learning resources, and the path that they think might be right for them, or autonomy. Each of these play a role in flexible and personalized learning. Let's take a closer look. Differentiated learning programs still broadly utilize a single source of truth who oversees content planning and delivery based on their expert understanding of where specific learners or learner groups are in their journey and where they need to go. It's a directive approach, but applied at the individual level. For instance, as a trainer or leader of a specific group of learners, you probably have a pretty good idea of what you want them to know and what knowledge and skills will lead to success in their current or future roles. So while a completely individualized program, that is, tailored curriculum for each specific learner, may not be feasible, it's often possible to customize instruction at a group or cohort level. Perhaps you have a group of tenured account managers that are on the cusp of advancement and would benefit from an emerging leaders program. Because of their shared experience and identified skill level, along with the likely existence of company-identified competencies for a leadership role, a differentiated program for this cohort probably makes a lot of sense. In this way, employees with more or less knowledge and experience could be enrolled into a similarly designed cohort that focuses on other skills and competencies specific to their current state. This is how directive learning can begin to become differentiated and start to introduce some level of personalization of content. Unlike differentiating, which is still entirely directive driven, with personalized learning, you begin to extend some control to your learners, encouraging them to explore and help determine their own path. Think about attending a learning conference, much like this L10 event, where there are lots of options for learning experiences, but you get to select the ones you're most interested in. What makes it personal is that you had the autonomy to choose your learning events and organize them as you saw fit, given your interests, goals, areas of focus, knowledge deficiencies, or perhaps just what you had time to sneak in, which means your learning path for this conference was likely unique and different from everyone else's in some way. Regardless of why you chose what you did, you were given the control to direct your learning journey at the conference, choosing your own path to increase your knowledge. And that's what personalization is all about. Learning experiences are often standardized for convenience in order to save time and cost. But what is the true expense if individual learner needs aren't met and learning outcomes aren't achieved? Through the use of individual-specific content, and at least in part user-defined paths, personalized learning programs seek to connect to the strengths, experiences, preferences, and yes, even passions of learners, to start from where the learner is and move forward from there toward their desired learning goals. Finally, I want to speak to adaptive learning, which is the delivery of custom learning experiences, oftentimes utilizing learning design elements and technology that addresses the unique needs of individuals through features like just-in-time feedback, custom pathways, and additional resources. Unlike more directive programs, with adaptive learning, the path can change as the learner progresses. Remember those plot points on our topographic learning map? Adaptive learning can rechart a learner's course of direction mid-journey based on their performance and assessed aptitude in a given area. A knowledge gap may lead to more concentration and practice on that particular subject, while proven proficiency or on another subject may mean that the learner won't see that content type again because it's clear that they already have a solid grasp on that topic area. It's worth noting the differences between designed adaptivity and algorithmic adaptivity. Designed adaptivity is a method in which an expert-designed learning sequence guides learners toward content mastery. The subject matter expert and/or instructional designer drive how the lesson adapts feedback and content sequences. Adaptations can occur based on a variety of factors called adaptivity factors. This expert model or design approach to adaptivity tells the technology how to react in unique situations, like an if-then statement. For instance, if the learner is struggling with content X based on program assessments, then give them more of that type of content for remediation. If the learner is particularly adept at content Y, remove some or all of the related lessons as to respect the learner's already attained knowledge and not waste their time, or give them more advanced coursework to build on. Algorithmic adaptivity is a method in which an algorithm answers the following questions. 1. What does the learner know? And 2. What should the learner experience next? Based on the answers to those two questions, the algorithm can select the right item at the right time for learners as they continue down their journey. Here are a few examples of how algorithmic adaptivity can be built into a learner's flexible path. Adaptive content doesn't just give you the correct or the incorrect answer, but it explains why and potentially provides additional resources or where to find the correct answer. Adaptive sequencing continuously collects and analyzes learner data to automatically change what the learner sees next, from the order of skills that they work on to the type of content received. Sequencing adaptivity is often driven by an enhanced LMS or modern LXP. Adaptive assessment changes the questions a learner sees based on his or her response to the previous questions. The difficulty of questions will increase as a learner answers them more accurately, while if the learner struggles, the questions get easier. This method is often used to benchmark learner understanding or progress. So why is personalization important to learners? Well, there are lots of reasons why learning personalization works. There's the lack of time that most employees have to learn, whether formally through company programs or informally in the flow of work. Because of this lack of time, it makes sense that a learning program personalized to my needs that accounts for my past experiences and previously gained knowledge would remove the fluff, therefore protecting the limited time I have and only providing the most pertinent content for me. Then there's the engagement perspective. If I'm presented with only content that is relevant to my role, my knowledge level, my interest and goals, then I'm immediately going to be more engaged as a learner. Think about a large content library with thousands of learning resources on many topics across numerous industries. As impressive as these giant repositories of content can be, they can also be confusing, distracting, and a waste of time if no direction is given as to what resources will help learners meet their very specific needs and goals. Quality content with a high relevance to learner and a directive path will trump quantity any day, and undoubtedly lead to increased learning engagement. However, as real as time constraints and the need for engaging content are, if the question is why is personalization important to learners, it really boils down to one primary issue: control. Adult learners desire and require agency, that is, control or at least influence over their specific learning journey and experiences. Strictly directive or mandated content doesn't appeal to most learners, specifically adult learners who know their own interest and perhaps comprehend at least some of their learning gaps. Agency, it seems, leads to motivation, and inversely, lack of learning autonomy can severely, if not completely, erode any sense of purpose for learners. Adult learners want the ability to make decisions regarding their learning path, taking ownership of where they go and, in many ways, how they get there. How we design for flexibility and personalization in learning modules, pathways, and programs matters, as it impacts learner agency, motivation, and unavoidably, whether learning and skill development takes place. How we design for flexibility and personalization in learning modules, pathways, and programs matters, as it impacts learner agency, motivation, and unavoidably whether learning and skill development takes place. So, what are the program benefits of incorporating flexible design for personalized learning? Well, I'm glad you asked. First, it saves time. It cuts down on the overall time it takes for learners to engage and understand a new topic. By removing content that is already known or no longer relevant given the experience level of the learner, they save time by only encountering new concepts and not wasting limited time on previously attained knowledge. It increases engagement. For personalization to work properly, it must be paired with accurate and relevant information for the learner. Put all these together and you have a recipe for engaging learning. Remember, a learner is more likely to interact with and recall content that aligns with their role, level of experience, and interest. It improves knowledge retention. By understanding what learners already know, you can easily create learning programs that build off prior knowledge and omit redundant information. Simply put, when you're able to assemble a more personalized program that connects to previously learned concepts, learning retention improves. It increases motivation. The last thing we want to do is waste learners' time, especially since they have so little time to dedicate to learning to begin with. Learning that is focused on and relevant to the specifics of what the learner needs to know to do their job, achieve their goals, and continue on their learning path increases their motivation. Sounds a lot like learner centricity, doesn't it? And finally, it improves results. And that's what it's all about, right? Does the learner learn? Do their actions and behaviors change? Are they better prepared for their role and the task at hand, having completed the learning experience? Look at the previous 4 benefits. By creating a learning program that is relevant, engaging, actionable, and memorable, you increase learner satisfaction, knowledge, and skills. What else could you want, right? Personalization in learning is valuable. Hopefully I've gotten that point across. It's important to learners and it's critical to quality learning outcomes, that is, the acquisition of knowledge and changing of behavior. But directed learning isn't all bad either. After all, when setting out on any learning journey, many learners don't know the best path to take. Perhaps it's cliche to say, but they don't know what they don't know. So what do they need? Well, they need to know what information and skills are important to focus on. They need a map of how to get from A to B, where A represents where they currently are, and B is the achievement of their learning goals. In short, they need guidance, and that's where directive learning can shine. It's because of this that any truly useful and effective learning program will incorporate tenets of both directive and personalized learning. From a place of expertise, it's okay to tell your learners what they need to do to get to where they want to go. By the same token, it's also okay to admit that everyone's pathway to that destination may look a little different by being flexible and supporting variability in learning through program design. It's why at CMR we use a variety of personalization techniques to accompany our learning content. Consider this: most people aren't just naturally flexible physically. It requires work. Movement, stretching, and agility training all promote flexibility. In much the same way, flexibility in learning programs doesn't just happen. It requires learner-centered program design. You must prepare and allow for flexibility through curriculum design and learner autonomy within the directive framework of the program. Here are just a few examples of methods we use to promote learning flexibility and individualization. Curated content. Curation is a great first step to personalization. Instead of offering our full library, we work with clients listening to their exact learning needs. Who is the audience? Do they have similar backgrounds and shared experiences? What do they need to know in their role? Questions like this help us to curate content down to the essentials so we can recommend and provide the exact content needed to accomplish the specified learning goals for the identified learner or group. Custom pathways. Pathways are a great way to provide directive content in a particular order for a specific group, while also building in opportunities for flexibility. We often build custom pathways for client-identified learner groups that guide the cohort through our microlearning content, but we also offer suggestions for optional content, should individual learners want to take a deeper dive in a given subject that is important or intriguing to them personally. Course design features, also known as designed personalization. The freedom to explore and create a unique learning path within the confines of a single module is also possible. Though much of our content suggests taking microlessons in a specific order, our modules are also unlocked, allowing learners to bypass content they feel they already know or to jump straight to the information they view as vitally necessary in the moment. In this way, our content is both directive and personalized. Coaching opportunities. Building in opportunities for one-on-one or group coaching sessions into a learning experience is a great way to give learners access to expert knowledge. Learning modules are great to develop fundamental knowledge, but can sometimes leave learners with more specific questions about how to apply information in a particular situation. The ability to tap into the knowledge and expertise of a coach can prove to be invaluable for learning and individualization. Cohort Connections. Similarly to coaching opportunities, connecting individual learners with other members of their learning group who have similar experiences and are trying to achieve comparable goals is a great way to introduce people and personalization into the mix. By having one-on-one or group conversations, learners can ask and get answers to specific questions they have in a way that is rarely possible within an e-module. Continued exploration. Offering additional resources is a really easy way to allow for personalization in learning. Did you like that content? Consider these related resources. Supplementary resources help the learner explore areas of personal interest and gain more knowledge. And bonus for designers, oftentimes we can use pre-existing, well-produced, and free content. Things like a quality YouTube video, a related podcast, or a highly engaging TED Talk can be our friends. Course objectives. This one seems simple, and it is, but clearly stating the objectives for the learning content can help learners assess what areas of the module are important to them and where they should focus their attention, and inversely, where perhaps they don't need to spend a lot of time. Objectives can also help learners understand how the content can build off their previously attained knowledge. Again, this information can help guide and direct learners through an autonomous program, saving them time as they learn efficiently. Choice in pace and place. Because of varied schedules, availability, and preferences, in addition to limited time to learn overall, it's often critical to allow opportunities for individual learners to work asynchronously when and where it fits into their schedules. This scheduling flexibility adds an appreciated and oftentimes necessary level of personalization to a learning program. Side note here, microlearning is another great way to support flexibility within programs by offering content that is quickly and easily consumable in the flow of work or for just-in-time training. Content type variability. Using blended learning formats like videos, podcasts, and other multimedia can maintain attention and provide ownership if learners are able to choose the format. This not only provides learner autonomy in format, but also allows for various learning styles and preferences. Connect to self. When learners are posed with questions, seeking and identifying answers, they're more invested than if they were just being told what to think or do. Posing reflection type questions like, why do I need to know this? How will this help me better serve my customers? And how does this apply to my role? Allow learners to consider how the learning content applies to their specific situation. Reflection questions and connecting to the unique learner can quickly personalize content for individualized application. Personalization allows learners to be a part of their learning experience, not just something that happens to them, but something they get to participate in and help shape. Remember, when learning feels personal and learners have some agency in their program, they're more motivated to learn. And when they're more motivated, they're more engaged in the learning process. And engagement leads to achievement of learning goals, that is, knowledge and behavior change, which is why we should all care about flexible and personalized learning. So, the next time you're developing a learning program, think about the specific audience and the individuals involved. How can you incorporate strategies for flexibility and personalization that will offer the learner some control and help them achieve their goals when, where, and how they want? Because as a program developer and designer, regardless of whether we intentionally build in these features or not, our learners, well, they take it personally. Thank you for joining me for this session. For more on flexible and personalized learning strategies, visit our website or contact us today.